a course approval system to be embedded in their existing portal. So here's an example of existing software being extended, and this is their own portal, right? So extending their portal to include some additional workflow, some additional connections to data and systems to provide the uploaded proposals and the approval and review and approval of those proposals, and then of course all of the data and system interactions that have to occur in the back end in order to make an approved course actually make it into the catalog. So this is how it works. This is the electronic bill in the Mexican institution accommodating a federal requirement in Mexico. This is a simplified version so that I can demonstrate the core attributes. But if you look at the line at the bottom that says service, these are components of functionality that either exist in most cases, in many cases in Banner or elsewhere in the institution, as well as components that didn't exist that had to be written. So in other words, what are the components of functionality in the enterprise that need to be invoked, that can be leveraged? And then of course on top you see the data, the flow of data. But the piece in the middle is the model. So what this is it's a business process management model, a BPM model built graphically by dragging some boxes around on a screen and connecting some dots, etc. And then identifying where within the enterprise are these components invoked. What systems does it go into and actually call them and make them work? And Infinity has the ability to do that with existing functionality. This is the course approval system. Again, the nice thing about this example I like that's wonderful to highlight is the fact that this is merely extending functionality in an existing portal. It's a fantastic example of how to leverage Infinity to actually extend functionality in something that exists. Another example I'd like to share, and there's more on this during this conference as well, but a new product that we launched a couple of months ago called Course Signals. Another need in our sense and respond way in which we interact with the market today was around retention and student success. And in order to really provide the necessary analytics, and not just the information and awareness and alerting of what's going on with each student, but the ability to connect those dots, do something about it, do it early enough in the course so that something can be done about it to affect the status and the success of every student. This is also an example of a component built with the Infinity application framework, done relatively quickly, being able to leverage infrastructure and start. It's also an example of components that are delivered in the cloud. But in this case, it's a little bit different. Another attribute I'd like to highlight with this example is that this is actually what I'll call the hybrid cloud. Security obviously is a very important consideration when thinking about what to consume from the cloud versus what needs to be loaded locally and so forth. So we consider that very carefully in the design of every component. And in this particular example, you have sort of a hybrid situation. There is a component that is always loaded at the institution. It's a small piece of software, lightweight to install and to manage, and there's very, very little actually administration relative to that component. What does it do? Well, it's the piece that handles all the proprietary, private data, and it does so within your firewalls, within the institution. Then there's the other piece of the component, which is the application component, which doesn't understand proprietary private data, It merely is interacting with GUIDs and IDs that are agnostic to the data itself. But that's where that's where the application is, the analytics that actually need to be, that can be loaded off-site, whereas the analytics that have to be on-site because it's dealing with private data is separate. So this is a way in which you can lower your overhead in terms of software installed locally, but you can also take advantage of the cloud. And so it's aware of how to split that data. How it works, just so that you're aware, is it connects to lots of sources of data, and this is the piece that sits inside the enterprise that deals with the private data. So it connects with the gradebook, the LMS, the student information system, and sort of understands that data and works with it. And then, of course, ultimately, just through a very intuitive stoplight paradigm, red, yellow, green, this indicator is provided not just to the student, but to the instructor as well, very early in the course, using proprietary analytics that were developed by Purdue University. And I highlight that attribute because it's another great example of how we are interacting and working with the industry. In this case, Purdue University and SunGard have partnered to utilize a lot of research that had been taking place over the past 3 or 4 years at Purdue to understand how this analytical model can work, so it can predict what's really going to happen later on in the course given the data that's available to it. So something can actually be done about a red or a yellow early enough in the course. And we'll continue to improve this in terms of its connectivity to other systems and data as it goes along. But it's a great example of the Open Digital Campus. Good example of partnering with the community and leveraging the innovation that exists in higher education, making that available to the industry broadly. It's an example of evolutionary delivery, where we can deliver things to you lightweight, on demand, and much quicker. We also implement our Open Digital Campus in the way in which we interact with partners. Here's an example of a great partner where we leverage the strengths of the partner and the strengths of SunGard, bring them together to give you more value. A company by the name of RSmart is a good example of this, and in the case of RSmart, this is an organization that is a founding member of the Sakai group that enables an open source LMS. They provide a tremendous amount of value and expertise around the installation and maintenance of that. This is actually available on demand as well in the cloud. But then we couple that with SunGard's expertise. We have over 90 individuals that focus on course management and the management of learning management systems and all the governance that goes around developing courses and so forth in the LMS. And we're able to offer that in a very rapid manner. We were able to put this together and take the value of both organizations and bring that to market rather quickly. And we do this with all of our partners. And I think many of you are familiar with our Commons strategy. Again, the way that we can enable outside in by connecting with you online. It's a great way to disseminate information. It's a great way to interact and collaborate. But one of the core attributes I'd like to highlight here relative to the Open Digital Campus is something we call community source, which is not just the exchange of information on the Commons, but it's the exchange of software bits as well, actual software. A lot of our institutions create really innovative software, fantastic components that they derive a lot of value from. Well, many of these components are rather generic. They can be leveraged by any other institution. So community source is the enabler to connect those dots, to take components that are developed by each institution and make those available to other institutions and facilitate the governance around that. So there's a quality model, there are standards in terms of how things plug together, and we use community source to interact with this industry at a development level, at a software development level. One quick example. Recently, a university in the United States, Texas Tech University, uploaded a component. This is a good example of the kinds of components that you'll see in community source. It's called Salary Planner. What this does is it extends the baseline functionality in Banner that provides budget planning capability. And it allows the functionality that, and sort of automates the functionality around salary planning specifically. So rather than just sort of the high-level budget planning capability, gives you, by department, salary information, allows you to tweak and turn knobs, etc. It's a fantastic component. Just one simple example of new functionality. Well, Texas Tech uploaded this recently to community source. So now all institutions actually can take advantage of it. How it works is, in this case, Texas Tech submits this component into community source, and there's actually a review board that exists in community source. And the review board is not run by SunGard. We have given it to the industry. So it is run by a board comprised of and run by the industry, of which SunGard is merely a member of. We do not run it. This board decides what components are allowed in there, whether or not they're validated in terms of following the standards, the security standards, the quality standards, etc., usefulness, and so forth. They govern that. They also decide whether or not this component is merely available for download as a separate component, or they also decide whether or not what components are actually pulled into SunGard baseline. They decide that. What that means is that over time, we've essentially turned our capacity, if you will, of development and turn that into the entire industry. So we have an entire global industry of software developers that contribute into the baseline that you all benefit from. And that's fantastic. Now, we just launched this. It began in 2010, and it has already just begun to sort of explode. But it will continue to grow. I'm actually delighted with the progress it has shown thus far, and surprised. And it's something that is going to benefit this industry almost like nothing else we've ever done, because it is leveraging the entire globe and every institution. And then finally, one other example I'd like to use, and most of these things you'll hear more about today and throughout this user group meeting. But this is our mobile connection. This is our mobile strategy, and I share this with you to highlight the following attributes. This is a situation where we, once again, leveraged the community, developed this with the community. This was not SunGard in a silo. So the actual development of the framework that I'm going to demonstrate for you today was developed with the community. But then the actual end result, how this framework interacts with the applications that sit atop it, is also something that is community driven. In fact, an entire ecosystem. You see, what we did not want to do is write a bunch of applications, canned applications that each institution would then have to use. See, that's inside out. The outside-in way of thinking about a framework like this is to build a framework that shortens the distance for you between the identification of a mobile need and the delivery of something on these